Hello gentle listeners, and welcome back to Whispers of the Past. Tonight, we embark on the first chapter of a multiple-part series exploring one of the most enduring legends of all time. From its mysterious origins to its conclusion, we're going to be unraveling the tale of King Arthur. So, settle in with a warm cup of tea, or curl up under a cozy blanket as we begin the story of a boy who was destined to become a king, the legendary Arthur Pendragon. Chapter 1: A Wild and Untamed World. Long ago, when the world was wild and untamed, and the veil between magic and mortal life was thin, Britain was a land in turmoil. Clans and kingdoms warred endlessly, their leaders vying for power over a fractured land. Dark forests stretched endlessly, harboring creatures of legend and magic. The hills whispered ancient secrets, and rivers gleamed like molten silver under the moonlight. This was a world teetering between chaos and order, a fertile ground for legends to be born. At the heart of this chaos stood Uther Pendragon, a warrior king whose banner bore the image of a fearsome dragon. Uther was a man of great ambition, his presence commanding on the battlefield and in the halls of his castle. His sword was sharp, his armies loyal, but his heart was restless. He dreamed not just of a throne, but of a united kingdom, one that would endure beyond his lifetime. Yet, Uther was also a man ruled by his desires, and it was one such desire that would alter the course of history. Among the many lords who served him was Glorious, Duke of Cornwall, a loyal vassal with a wife of unparalleled beauty. Igraine was her name, and to those who saw her, she seemed almost otherworldly. Her hair like spun gold, her presence as serene as the first light of dawn. The moment Uther laid eyes on her, he was undone. But Igraine was not his to claim. She belonged to Glorious, a man of honor who would defend his wife and his lands to his last breath. Yet, Uther's obsession consumed him, and his longing for Igraine grew like a fire that could not be quenched. His advisors warned him against acting on his desire, but Uther was not a man easily dissuaded. His obsession would lead him to seek counsel from a man whose powers were as mysterious as they were dangerous. The enigmatic wizard, Merlin. Merlin was a figure shrouded in myth even in his own time. Some said he was born of a mortal woman and a spirit of the other world, his very existence a bridge between two realms. Others whispered that he could see the threads of fate and weave them to his will. He lived on the fringes of society, appearing only when destiny called for him. When Uther summoned him, Merlin came, his eyes gleaming with the knowledge of things yet to come. Uther, consumed by his obsession and unwilling to let Igraine slip from his grasp, laid bare his desire before Merlin. He sought not just counsel, but a solution, a way to claim Igraine despite the insurmountable barrier of her marriage to Glorious. It was no ordinary request, for he wanted Merlin to use magic to twist the fabric of reality to his will. Chapter 2: Merlin's Bargain. Merlin was a figure of legend, his name known throughout Britain as a man of great power and cunning. He had long watched the chaos of the land and the ambitions of men like Uther Pendragon. Merlin knew that the path to unity would not be forged by strength of arms alone, but through destiny and sacrifice. When Uther summoned Merlin to his court, desperation hung heavy in the air. Uther spoke of Igraine, of his love, or perhaps obsession, and his frustration at being unable to win her. Merlin listened, his piercing eyes betraying no emotion. When Uther had finished, Merlin spoke, his voice measured and calm. "You seek not just a woman," Merlin said, "but a legacy. What I offer you is not merely her hand, but the future of this land. If I help you, it will not be for your desires alone. There will be a cost. Are you prepared to pay it?" Uther hesitated but for a moment. "I will pay any price," he declared, his voice filled with conviction. Merlin's terms were simple, but unyielding. He would use magic to bring Igraine to Uther, but the child born of their union would belong to Merlin. "This child," he said, "is destined for greatness. He must be raised away from the temptations of power, away from courtly corruption. Only then can he fulfill the destiny that awaits him." The pact was struck, and Merlin set to work. Through his enchantments, he cloaked Uther in the guise of Glorys, fooling even Igraine herself. That night, while the real Glorys rode into battle and met his end, Uther claimed his prize. But the magic Merlin wove was not without its toll. The very land seemed to tremble with the weight of the deed, as if nature itself bore witness to the price being paid. In the months that followed, Igraine bore a son. The boy was strong, his eyes bright with a wisdom far beyond his years, but the joy of his birth was overshadowed by Merlin's arrival. True to his word, the wizard came to claim the child. Igraine wept as her son was taken from her arms, and Uther, though triumphant, felt the sting of his bargain. Merlin delivered the infant to Sir Ector, a loyal and honourable knight who lived far from the intrigues of the court. "Raise him as your own," Merlin instructed. "Teach him kindness and humility, for he must grow to be a king not only in name, but in spirit." The boy was given a simple name, Arthur. As he grew in obscurity, Merlin watched from the shadows, guiding events with a careful hand. He whispered to kings, shaped battles with his foresight, and waited for the day when the boy would be ready to claim his birthright. For Merlin knew that Arthur's time would come, and with it, the chance to forge a kingdom that would endure the ages. Chapter 3: The Sword in the Stone. Years passed, and Arthur grew up in the quiet care of Sir Ector and his son, Kay. The boy had no knowledge of his true lineage. To him, Ector was his father, and Kay was his brother. Though their home was modest, Arthur was taught the values of humility, honour, and kindness, qualities that set him apart from other boys of his age. Arthur's days were filled with simple yet fulfilling duties. He helped tend to the horses, assisted Kay with his training, and learned the ways of knighthood from Ector. Though his life seemed ordinary, there was an innate strength and wisdom about him, a quiet determination that made others take notice. He treated even the lowliest servants with kindness, earning their respect and affection. Yet, there was always a sense of longing within Arthur, a feeling that he was meant for something greater, though he could not articulate why. In the meantime, the kingdom remained fractured. Uther's reign had ended in turmoil, and with no clear heir to the throne, Britain descended into anarchy. Rival lords clashed in endless skirmishes, each vying for control of the land. The people, wary of the constant strife, began to lose hope that a true leader would ever arise. It was during this time of despair that Merlin reappeared, carrying with him a solution that could not be ignored. One morning, as the sun rose over a frost-covered field in the heart of London, the people awoke to find an extraordinary sight. In the courtyard of a great cathedral stood a massive stone, and embedded within it was a sword of unmatched beauty. Its hilt glittered with gold and jewels, and its blade bore an inscription that read, "Whosoever pulleth out this sword from this stone and anvil is rightwise king born of all England." Word spread quickly, and knights and lords from across the land flocked to the cathedral to test their strength and claim the throne. One by one, they failed. The sword would not budge, no matter how much force was applied. It became a spectacle, a beacon of hope for some, and a source of frustrations for others. Among the crowds that gathered was Sir Ector, who had brought Kay to compete in a tournament held nearby. Arthur, now a young squire, attended to his duties, ensuring Kay's armour and weapons were in order. Despite his humble role, Arthur observed the knights and lords with quiet admiration. imagining himself in their place, though he dismissed such thoughts as fanciful. On the morning of the tournament, Kay realized he had forgotten his sword. Flustered, he turned to Arthur and demanded he retrieve it. Arthur, ever dutiful, searched the grounds but found no sign of Kay's blade. In his desperation, he recalled the sword and the stone and made his way to the cathedral courtyard. The area was strangely quiet. The crowds having dispersed for the tournament, Arthur approached the stone, feeling a pull he could not explain. The sword seemed to shimmer in the morning light, as if waiting for him. Without hesitation, he grasped the hilt and pulled. To his astonishment, the sword slid free with ease, its blade gleaming as though freshly forged. Unaware of the significance of his action, Arthur returned to Kay and handed him the sword. But when Sir Ector saw the weapon, his eyes widened with recognition. He demanded to know where Arthur had found it. The boy, confused by the sudden attention, led them back to the stone. Before a gathering crowd, Arthur replaced the sword in the stone, and, at Ector's insistence, drew it out once more. Gasps echoed throughout the courtyard as the realization dawned. Merlin, watching from the shadows, stepped forward and declared, "Behold, your king." Arthur's life changed in an instant. From a humble squire, he was thrust into the role of monarch, a destiny he had never imagined. Though he was overwhelmed by the cheers of the crowd and the weight of expectation, Merlin stood by his side, his eyes filled with both pride and caution. The wizard knew that this was only the beginning. For Arthur's true test as king would come not from pulling the sword, but from the trials that lay ahead, trials that would test his heart, his spirit, and his resolve. Chapter 4: Coronation and the Burden of Leadership. With a sword drawn from a stone and Arthur's destiny revealed, the kingdom stirred with equal measures of hope and skepticism. The lords and knights, many of whom sought the throne for themselves, questioned the legitimacy of this boy king. How could a mere squire, a child raised in obscurity, claim the right to rule? It was Merlin who stepped forward, offering cryptic assurances about Arthur's right to the throne. He spoke of destiny and a higher purpose, but held back the full truth of Arthur's lineage, leaving an air of mystery to linger. Arthur's coronation was held in the great cathedral of London, a solemn and grand affair. The people of Britain gathered in droves, their faces a mixture of curiosity and cautious optimism. The cathedral was adorned with banners and candles, the air heavy with the scent of incense and the hum of anticipation. As Arthur knelt before the altar, the Archbishop anointed him with holy oil, declaring him the rightful King of England. When Arthur rose, crowned and cloaked in royal robes, the crowd erupted into cheers, their voices carrying the first glimmers of unity the kingdom had seen in years. Yet, Arthur felt the weight of the crown immediately. The cheers of the crowd were loud, but so too were the whispers of the discontent among the noble lords. Many refused to recognize his authority, retreating to their castles and fortresses to plot rebellion. Merlin, ever the guide, stood by Arthur's side, urging him to act swiftly to secure his reign. Arthur's first test as a king came not in the form of battle, but in the delicate art of diplomacy. He called a council of the realm's most powerful lords, inviting them to a grand feast. Though the venue was modest, a simple hall within the kingdom, Arthur's words carried the weight of a true king. He spoke of unity, of a land where the strong protected the weak, and where justice prevailed over ambition. His sincerity, coupled with Merlin's subtle influence, began to sway some of the lords, though others remained steadfast in their defiance. As the weeks turned into months, Arthur focused on earning the trust of his people. He traveled across his lands, meeting with local leaders, listening to the grievances of his subjects, and working tirelessly to bring order to a fractured kingdom. These efforts were not without resistance, as rival factions tested his resolve and whispers of rebellion echoed in the shadows. Arthur's victories in these early trials were as much about his character as his strategy. His ability to inspire loyalty and hope became his greatest weapon. He laid the groundwork for a future of unity, though the full vision of Camelot and the Round Table was not yet realized. For now, Arthur's focus was on proving himself worthy of the crown he bore. One evening, Arthur stood atop the battlements of a growing fortress, gazing out over the land he now called his own. The stronghold was not yet the majestic Camelot of legend, but it was a symbol of the beginnings of his reign. Arthur felt the enormity of his task. The crown upon his head was not a symbol of power, but of responsibility, a reminder that his destiny was not to serve himself, but his people. And though the road ahead was uncertain, Arthur's heart swelled with determination. He would not fail. He could not fail, for he was Arthur, the once and future king, and his legend was only beginning. As Arthur descended from the battlements, the weight of his crown pressed heavily upon him, but so too did the hope of his people light a fire within. He knew that his journey had only begun, and that to unite a fractured land, he would need more than strength and strategy. He would need the wisdom and guidance of those who saw beyond mortal realms. Merlin, the enigmatic magician, loomed as both a mentor and a mystery, holding secrets that could shape Arthur's destiny. Thank you for listening, gentle listeners, to the beginning of Arthur's extraordinary journey in The Origins of Arthur. From the hands of fate to the sword and the stone, we have seen the spark of a legend ignite. Join us next time for episode 2, Merlin the Magician, where we will uncover the secrets of the man behind the myth, his power, his wisdom, and the shadows that linger in his story. Until then, may your days be filled with wonder, and may the echoes of Camelot inspire you always. If you enjoyed this episode, then please subscribe, like, leave a review, and share it with your friends and family. See you next time.